This episode started off a little bit different because I usually share garden updates on my Instagram stories, and recently I got this reply. And just said y'all wanted recipes to go along with it. So these are just a couple of things that I made with my harvest. In case you can't already tell, I love a salad or a sauteed green. But speaking of greens, we all use the term vegetables because then everybody kind of knows what you're talking about. But the short translation of that is just the edible part of a plant, which is usually all of it. Like this morning, I picked romaine, Russian kale, lacinato kale, and off camera, I also picked arugula and endive. Those are leaves. A few days before that, I also picked radishes and I planted carrots, which are roots. Had I planted broccoli and artichoke, right about now, I would be eating flowers. And when my tomatoes, my peppers, watermelon, zucchini, cucumber, and butternut squash are ready, then I'll be eating fruit, which also started off as a flower, but that's besides the point. My point is, why aren't we just calling things what they are? Kind of like cuties. They're just baby tangerines or oranges or whatever without seeds so that kids can snack on them more easily. And speaking of fruit, one of my favorites that I've grown thus far are snow peas. I usually get a whole handful like every single morning, except of course the day that I decide to film it. But the reason that I grew them is because I love a stir fry, at least for when I'm not just eating them raw with dip. And this week I decided to make a yakisoba for a good dose of protein. With snow peas, the goal is to pick them early so that the entire pod is still soft and edible and crispy, because if you let it sit on the plant for too long, it turns into more of a shelling pea. The pod becomes too tough, like texture-wise, and it develops the string that you have to pull to open it. But this one is still very much edible. However, compared to the stage that I normally pick them at, you can definitely tell the difference. And compared to a fully ripened pea, you can see they're no longer attached and are very plump. You can literally see just how tough and hard the pod is. Now, I'm no chef, but nothing says I am a professional more than a website that reflects just that. Having a central location where clients and potential clients can schedule appointments instead of sending DMs is priceless. Like, having a place that people can view your portfolio without having to necessarily rely on an algorithm to bring eyes to your work is also invaluable, and so much more. You can even send out newsletters to showcase promotions or holiday specials. And even if you don't do nails, all of those features are still available for whatever services you may offer both offline and online, including selling webinars or subscriptions or tangible merchandise. So if you haven't already, you can sign up at www.squarespace.com/abetweene for your free 14-day trial and save 10% off of your first purchase. And then for a salad, I'll usually just do whatever I have on hand, either with a balsamic tofu chicken or crispy chickpeas. These are nice for adding a little bit of texture, almost like a crouton if you roast them for long enough. Also a great snack too if you're just craving something crunchy like a chip. I'm making that kale lemonade that I've been talking about forever. You've probably seen me save the stalks in a couple of episodes, so now I'm gonna juice them. But what I'm not gonna juice is the lemons because I'm just gonna make a lemon syrup. Anytime that you include the skin, you are getting a lot more of that lemon flavor because you are including the essential oils that are in the peel. So to preserve the freshness, instead of cooking it, I'm just gonna create a macerated syrup where you basically just drown it in sugar. And here I'm just using 1 lemon, but I also squeeze in the juice of any of the leftover bits that I sliced and eventually added another lemon because the next day some of the sugar hadn't dissolved yet. That is because technically you should be weighing the amount of fruit that you have and then adding that amount of sugar, but I guess I was really committed to using this jar, so here we are. And if you leave a little bit of extra room, you can just shake it up or mix it in a bowl before actually putting it in the jar. As you can see, there is still quite a bit of undissolved sugar at the bottom of the jar, but syrup on the top. That is why you need at least a 1-to-1 ratio, because this is what too much sugar and not enough fruit looks like. So again, measure. And I don't mean in cups. It's best if you weigh it. I was gonna just do kale and lemon, but I also had a pineapple in the refrigerator that I planned on juicing, so obviously had to try that combination. Let's play a game. Just pretend that I made this drink on the same day that I made the juice and that the color is not oxidized, because foods that are green already need a better PR team, and this is not helping. I saw a guy refer to a matcha latte as tasting like a vanilla football field, and I don't want that for this. And bonus recipe, I shared these pretzel bites on my stories as well. The full recipe is going to be in the description box along with everything else. After this doubles in size, you could go right into shaping it. But the great thing about sourdough, as far as being more gut friendly, is that the carbohydrates are broken down. So I always prefer to give the dough more time versus less to ferment. So I put this in the refrigerator to do a cold proof, just like I would if I was making a loaf. However, this is a different batch, which is half the size of the amount that you saw in the last footage. Even this sat in the refrigerator for 2 full days, probably over 48 hours actually, and it's still fine. And when you're shaping these, you don't want to do a whole lot of manipulating, so I just leave it in the shape that it's kind of coming out of the container. You also want to make sure that your surface is well floured. After you cut them, be sure to toss them around a little bit. Otherwise, the cut edges that you just created will want to fuse back together or stick together. And of course, you can keep the end cuts like rustic, but if you do prefer more uniform shapes, then you can put them together and create a pretzel ball. Just like bagels, you want to drop them into boiling water. Just make sure that you add a tablespoon of baking soda. And then I bake them for, I think, about 15-ish minutes, but that's because I'm using this little air fryer. So if you're using a standard one, it might be more like 20-25.